Hello, this is Frontline here and welcome to a tutorial video. In this one I'm going to be showing you how to make a shop that you cannot cheat in, only if you cannot break blocks. So nothing in Minecraft can really be cheat free, but this one's the closest you can get in the game to a no cheat shop. So in here we've got a nice little shop area. If you try and steal items for where they're going to come out, there's nothing you can do. There's a chest here that we'll talk about later, but for now, the price of getting an item is 12 diamonds. So I have 24, and the amazing thing about this shop is that you are allowed to buy multiple items at a time. So if I put in 24, it'll cycle through its little redstone magic in the back there. It does take a while though. That is probably one of the main things about this shop that isn't quite optimized. It's just a very long process. And there we go. We've got ourselves a golden hoe. And now we gotta wait for our second golden hoe to be able to come out, which once again is going to take a little bit of time, but with someone with patience, yeah, it doesn't take extremely long. It just takes a while. So let's actually get into kind of what this whole entire thing looks like here. This is the redstone. It looks a little bit bulky and also looks a little bit confusing, but don't worry, in the tutorial I'll show you how everything works. It's just that the main thing I want to tell you about this is that this part right here is expandable and contractible. This right here is what determines the price of the item, because as you can see this is 12 blocks long and the price is 12 blocks. So be sure to keep that in mind when we're going through the tutorial, and we'll also try and look at more of the circuitry later. But anyway, let's just actually get into the building right now, and then I can explain how you can modify it and be able to customize it for your own needs. So the main thing you're going to want to start out with is just basically building your starting area. Right now, my design uses a 3-block entrance area that allows for you to use the cheat shop, but technically it could also be condensed to 2. It's just that for this design I'm just going to show you guys how to be able to do this kind of an area, just because it makes it a little bit less congested and in my opinion looks nicer, but again it's customizable for whatever you want. So this chest right here is the input chest. Down here is what I like to call the chest of cheating. You want to be able to run a hopper from underneath this chest into the chest of cheating, and we'll get into why a little bit later, but we're just going to put a dropper here, and also, because obviously there's no items in here and you don't want people to steal them, we're also going to have a dropper in the back. If we have a dropper in the back here, if I'm able to just reach it right there, that should be alright. Yep, it's facing in the correct direction. It just basically needs to go right into the other. And yeah, that will be where the item dispenses out in the future. So next we gotta build a item sorter. And for this item sorter, we're going to need lots of different redstone components. So right here, we're just going to hop on underneath. We're going to be placing some temporary blocks just so that we're able to work this thing out. So have a hopper running across. Don't have it be running down, due to the fact that if it runs down, your sorter won't work 100% of the time. Now we want to be able to have it so that the hoppers run in one direction. It doesn't matter which direction it goes in, just it kind of depends on where you want your space. If you have them run in this direction, you need all of this space for your contraption. If you have it in this direction, it's going to use up this space. So whichever way that you have more room in, that's the direction you should go. So now we can run hoppers along here and then get them into a dropper. Should be this distance apart. This block wasn't needed, and that's basically how you're going to work this whole entire piece out. Anyway, let's get into the color coordination part of this whole entire thing. So we're going to make our item sorter yellow. So you can make it any color you want. If you're in survival, you can make out the different wood types. You don't even have to actually color coordinate at all. It's just a matter of this makes it a little bit easier for you to be able to see exactly which circuit does what, and the difference between the different parts that we're going to see later. So anyway, you want a comparator running directly out of this sideways hopper. Remember that this sideways hopper is right below the one that goes into the chest of cheating. So we're going to have a comparator there, have redstone going down, a repeater that goes here, and a torch that goes there. Very standard item sorter that you've probably been able to see before if you've looked at other YouTube redstone videos. And inside of this hopper is where you're going to want to put whatever item you want to be able to use. It has to be stackable. And for this example, I'm just going to use diamonds, kind of like what we did at the beginning. I'm just going to drag them through, and then I'm going to be able to place those into there. And it appears that we have a little bit of a redstone glitch at the moment, so I'm going to try and reset this. There we go. Now the comparator is actually working, and the items are going through. And now this whole entire thing, the items aren't going through. Once it gets to 18 items in this first slot, that's when it stops. Remember that you should fill all of these with a item that the player will not be able to use for currency. Probably just fill it up with the actual specified currency that they would use. And when you do it, make sure that there's an item in this hopper. If there's not an item in this hopper, the first time someone uses the shop, it's going to cost one extra item than normal, because there's always going to be an item that gets stuck down here. It's not really a design flaw, it's just a little quirk of the system that needs to do this in order for it to transfer over. So before we continue on with the tutorial, I've been saying the chest of cheating was going to be talked about later. Now is the time to talk about it. So this item sorter is used so that whatever currency it is, the player has to use that currency as a method of paying. If we didn't have the chest of cheating, all the items that the player could use, like say they wanted to use like rotten flesh or something, or how about sea pickles? Let's just use a bunch of sea pickles. So if they try and place down a bunch of sea pickles in here, it will not go through the item sorter to be able to pay for whatever item. It just ends up going down into this chest. If this chest did not exist, however, it would just get stuck at this hopper right here, and if the player cheats enough so that he uses 5 or so different items, then this shop is just inaccessible. They're not able to pay for the shop anymore, and you could say that they deserve it, but in this case, we're just going to have a chest here so that the items that they use, they're able to just pick them back up again. They get shunned for being a little cheater, and the whole entire thing doesn't clog up. Alright, so for this circuit, we're going to be using red. Not really for any reason, other than this is going to be a trash dispenser. So, this dropper right here is going to deposit directly into this elongated chest. This chest is basically used as a way to store all of the money that the shop produces, and so that this whole entire system doesn't just like end up clogging up. There's a lot of space in this chest. A lot of transactions have to take place before this space runs out. So anyway, to build this, we go underneath. We try and build around this whole entire thing like so. You're able to place that block up, this one as well, put this block right here, just kind of in this kind of a pattern. It's necessary that it's like this in correspondence with a dropper, so that you can put a comparator here, you can put redstone here. As you can see, we also have a little bit of diamonds in there left over from before, so it's actually lighting up. We can put redstone in there too while it's in our hotbar, and then the repeater will activate it. So this repeater will set up a clock that will dispense the items from here into the chest right here. So there's one little thing that you can do that might not necessarily be necessary in most cases, but if the system ever clogs up, this is how you do it. You just put this into subtract mode, because if this thing is completely full of every single item it can be, which is very unlikely by the way, this thing will not fire. The clock will just be stopped, and you'll just have a non-working shop. So although that's not very common, that's just something you can do. The other thing that we're going to do right now, though, is we're going to pull this repeater all the way back, and that's for timing reasons that we will discuss later. Now, the blue part is the part that is the most important, but it's also the part that I can't really give a specific tutorial for all of your needs. So let's just start off with a very simple blue circuit here. You want to put a repeater here to go out of this block. This one can be 1 tick, this one's 4 ticks, but this one you'll want to be able to do faster. So that will run into a block right here. We'll want to be, I'm kind of messing this up now, so I'll want to be able to have that repeater activate this piece of redstone right here. We'll also place back the dust that we placed in the last circuit. And this is going to run for however many blocks your item shop needs to be. So in this case, we're just going to build a three item shop area. So basically 3 diamonds will produce whatever item we put inside of that area. When we do this, you'll want to be able to have the redstone go back here. You'll want the redstone to run around, and it will go onto the repeaters here. Set this one to 2 ticks. You'll want it basically to be, this one's your 0 tick pulse, this one goes to 1, 2, etc. It'll just keep on getting longer and longer as time goes on. Now, the main thing about this system is that right now it's not powering anything. It's powering these blocks, but that's not really what we need right now. What we need is for it to actually track how many items have been in the system at a time. That's what this dropper array is going to be for. We're going to place droppers through this, going from the furthest point closer and closer over here. This last dropper you'll want to place in this direction, and then the hoppers will be able to run around like this. Now this part isn't necessary, but it's good practice. You can put blocks over these hoppers. Once again, not necessary, but it allows it so that if you accidentally drop something on it, it doesn't go into your system and mess everything up. So that's just good practice. Okay, one thing I forgot about this circuit is that you don't just only put in the droppers. You also want to put in a certain item. In this case, let's use a sea pickle. It doesn't actually matter what item is inside. It just matters that you only have one, and it's just one that will be able to go through the system and count up all your stuff. Now comes the part that will actually track how many items it takes to screw in the light bulb. Not just kidding. It takes how many items it takes to be able to dispense your item. So right here, as the circuit goes through, this item will only move 1 through the system and eventually get to this hopper where it will circle back to the beginning. So this right here is where you'll actually want to detect the system knowing that the player has put in enough items. This is the point where you can guarantee that. So anyway, we're going to put this here, have a repeater going up, and you can really wire this however you want to, but this is the simplest way and the most direct way of doing it. You can have a repeater going directly into a block. That'll power this redstone that goes all the way up here, and then you'll want the system to be able to run like this so that the redstone goes all the way around, and make sure the repeater is going into here wherever this block is. So how this works is that whenever the item gets detected, yes, the player has put in enough items, it goes, outputs this signal, and it powers this one first because it has a 0 tick pulse. It's powering this block, which activates the dropper. That will move the item into this one, where then 1 tick afterward, this repeater will activate, and then that will dispense this item towards the player and allow for them to pick it up without ever actually seeing the item in the dropper beforehand, where they can actually just steal everything away. So I modified this circuit just a little bit, and by a little bit I mean now it takes 4 items for the system to actually output a signal where the player gets whatever they were trying to buy. So this actually creates a problem. So when you're doing 3, the timing works out and everything just goes hunky-dory. Now, the problem that you may have been even thinking about yourself is that this circuit is constantly running. It outputs a signal through this that moves the item over one block at a time. Now, the item isn't always in those droppers. It can sometimes be in these hoppers back here. Say if the sea pickle ends up in this hopper and the whole entire circuit fires and it tries to do stuff with these droppers, well, then you just lost a coin. You just lost one of your diamonds inside of your purchase, and now it cost one extra item for you to be able to finally move it up that one extra space for it to output your signal. So you don't actually want this thing firing when this item is back here. To fix that, there's a very simple solution, but it's technically something that makes the system a little bit slower, and that's a pulse extender. You may have seen it on the other example that we did at the beginning of the video over there. And it's basically that we have redstone dust here, and this is a standard pulse extender. We have a comparator here, comparator here. Now, to explain how this thing works, this signal right here ends up being 15. A comparator duplicates that signal so that this is also a 15. At the same time, this also gives a slight delay of 1 tick. So it ends up being 15, then it goes to 14, slight delay, 14, 13. It keeps diminishing, and yet there's a slight delay in how the comparators diminishes the signal that it stays alight for quite a long time. And because it's alight for a long time, we can place a repeater here that goes directly into here. Now this locks this system from firing. Basically how this works is that, like repeaters, when they end up, let's just do this. So I can activate this, the pulse extender would have been activated. So this ends up having a bedrock thing go along this back. If this is trying to output a signal saying, oh, there's an item in here, and it tries to go through, it doesn't dispense the item or have the clock keep on going. So it just stops it right there and allows for the system to be able to reset after the pulse has diminished. And then it unlocks it and the system is able to resume. So anyway, to be able to also connect this thing to the output thing here, it's actually a little bit easier because it's a more straightforward of a path. We can just have the redstone go up here, have it keep on rising, and actually it should be right here. So this is the level you'll want it at, and then it goes right here, one block up, kinda, well, exactly the same as the other time, just so that this dropper is activated before this dropper. And that's basically how you do it. You're able to allow for this whole entire weirdness with the hoppers and trying to stop the clock right here. It does make your contraption one block wider, but it's more worth it so that you're able to buy multiple items at a time. Otherwise, you would only be able to buy one item at a time and wait for a cooldown to occur before you start dropping in more money into the system. Okay, so enough about the 4 items or the 3 items. Let's get into like the good beef and get into how to do the really big shops that allow you to buy lots of items at a time, or use lots of currency to buy one item at a time. So in this case, we have 10. Now, 10 is the magic number. You know why? Because it breaks. It's actually fixable, but it does break in the way that we built it. So we still need to change the pulse extender one more time, because at 9 our pulse extender works perfectly, but at 10 it runs into troubles. And it's actually a very easy fix. You may think that it would be a little bit harder, but all we need to do is just do that, honestly. So basically the pulse extender doubles its length, because once it does 15, it outputs the 15 into this block, but the 15 then gets transferred to this redstone. So for these 3 blocks, it's 15, and then it moves to 14 the second time through. So it doubles its length and allows for you to have twice the pulse, yet still have actually even less redstone. You just replace a piece of redstone with a block. So that's pretty much how you expand it there, but it gets a little bit more interesting when you really want to expand this, like past 10, past like 15, like all those like really big systems is the different pulse extenders I'm going to show you now. So before we get into our next magic number that breaks everything, I'm just going to mention something I forgot to in the last clip, and that's that when you extend it past 5 items, you'll need to be able to have a system that makes it easier for you to not have as many repeaters, and allows it so that the system is more reliable and doesn't break as easy. So basically how this works is that we have this redstone running around here, and then after these first 3 blocks, you'll need to be able to extend this 3 outward, which shouldn't be too much of a problem because it's in line with your item sorter, but if you're planning on having redstone really close to this, that may end up also being a problem for you. So with this whole entire system here, we're able to go all the way, increasing the delay. So that's 1 tick, 2 tick, 3 tick, 4 tick, basically pulling back on the repeater repeated times. So when you go over here, you'll want it to be pulled all the way back 4 ticks, and then have a repeater here set to 1 with redstone dust here. That allows it so that this redstone does not link with anything over here before this 4 tick delay is applied. And this redstone dust just basically makes it so that the least amount of delay that you need goes to this area. And it's just very simple. It's a very flat area. You can see exactly what's going on. I know the blue concrete and the redstone dust kind of mix poorly, but you still should be able to kind of see it anyway. So that's basically how that works, just increasing delay, and then you'll have to wrap it around into these different repeaters here. So anyway, magic number 2. Magic number 2. Okay, so this is 15. 15 breaks it very similarly to the other problem, but our pulse extender, we're actually going to need to do a little bit more to it, because obviously if we do this, well, nothing really happens. So, or even if we do this, because then the pulse extender would just be going on forever. It would just be another way of just looping redstone. So what we want to do is be able to extend this outward and add more comparators. So if we add a comparator there, and we do the redstone, well, this is actually the same delay that you would have anyway. Like if you had a block here and a redstone dust there and did that kind of circuit, yeah, that's exactly the same amount of delay as you would have doing this. So you also have to put lime concrete here, or any block really, any solid block. This is just color coded for easy purposes. To be able to make this whole entire circuit last for longer and be able to extend this thing out more. Now, I would get into more pulse extenders and more stuff, but honestly, most of you aren't going to do too many shops that are greater than 15. If you are, basically the only advice I have to you is that if you want to be able to add more comparators in a way that would be able to do this, you eventually run into the problem in that there's actually not really enough delay for this to turn into a pulse extender, and it becomes more of a clock than anything. So what you want to do is pull back this repeater a little bit to 2 ticks so that that's actually extended enough so this can be a pulse extender. Again, you want to be able to make sure that it doesn't have too much delay though, so that this thing can still end up being locked in time. This is on 4 ticks, and if this happens after a certain amount of time, it's not able to lock it before you lose a piece of redstone. So always try and keep that in mind. Make sure that you aren't making it so that all of your pulse extenders are basically fruitless efforts. And yeah, good luck on that whole entire mission there. So the absolute last thing you have to do, you can do this early on in the process if you want to as well, but I I prefer to do it last, is to actually stock up your supplies. So in here, you're able to have whatever item you want to, stackable or non-stackable, whatever you really want, because it only dispenses one item at a time anyway. So if we go into our crafting inventory here, let's just say that we wanted a bunch of golden hose and that we were able to fill this thing up. The main problem is that it can only fill up 9. So if you want to be able to have this thing be used over and over and over again, it's not a hard fix, but you are going to be able to have a hopper here, and then you can actually have chests going across here, and then you'll be able to like fill this up pretty much to your heart's content. You can just go in here, get a bunch of golden hose, and keep filling it up as you fill up your inventory. And this is just going to last like basically an eternity. You're going to be able to like last through the apocalypse with this many amount of golden hose. So yeah, that's pretty much the one thing you gotta do. Make sure you're filling them up in the back dropper as well, and you're not filling them up in the front hopper, because then again, you run into the one problem that people are just able to grab all of your items and leave your shop without actually being able to pay for them. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial video and that you found it useful for your own contraptions. I know that it can be a little bit bulky, especially if you go with the giant 15 item design, but nonetheless, it's an extraordinary versatile shop. You can have whatever value you want to here. Just remember that the amount of droppers corresponds with the amount of items you need to be able to make this thing tileable. You can even have like the repeaters done in a certain pattern to be able to make them work their way around. If you ever want to be able to have a different item, you can just go into here and replace all of these diamonds with something else. It's a relatively versatile shop. You can kind of customize it to whatever you want. You can use it for adventure maps. You can use it for survival. One thing I am going to disclaim for survival is that if people are known for griefing, this isn't going to stop them. If you are in survival, of course, you could always break this block and bam, you can grab all of the items. You can even like break this block and bam, you can get all of the currency that originated inside of the shop. Like people spend their money and they end up here, and people are still able to kind of break through. So this is mainly for adventure map and courteous server players, because courteous server players are always nice, and if you have courteous ones, maybe the shop isn't quite for you because you can just leave out a chest. So it's just kind of like a cool concept. I enjoy it. I used it for my adventure map Aztech labs. I'm going to actually leave a link to download that in the video description. It makes it very simple for adventure maps, where you're able to pretty much spend whatever and then get an item for that. So anyway, enough rambling. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.